Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Panay, and in today's podcast, I'm going to be reading from an essay I wrote called Through the Looking Glass, Forgiveness, Time and the Event Horizon. I was inspired to write this essay whilst watching a documentary about black holes, and the metaphors that came to my mind associated with black holes related well to some passages in the course, the idea of crossing thresholds. And I was also relating this idea of crossing thresholds to the ego's fear, to our fear of actually practicing forgiveness and letting go of the ego, as is reflected in the course's section, The Fear of Redemption, where it says we're not really afraid of guilt, of retribution, of punishment, because those things would make the ego real. The belief in those things make the idea of sin, guilt and fear real, which makes the idea of separation real, which actually solidifies our identification with the ego and the idea of separation from God. Our true fear in that section is of love, is of what if we looked within and saw there was no sin, that we had never left heaven as we believe. Then our fear is that we will be no more. We will be obliterated within that love. So this essay really speaks to that idea of what is on the other side of our ego. It speaks about our fears of what's on the other side, but how we can approach the idea of being on the other side of our ego in a way that lessens our fear. In reality, it's not true that we will lose ourselves, that we'll somehow be obliterated. The course's path is so gentle. The word gentle is used throughout the course, about a gentle process where we are gently led to the borderland, or we are gently led to the place where we can gently lay down our judgments of others. The process is gentle and we are never forced to go any faster than we are willing to go. And it's not true, again, that we lose us. We lose our identification with shame and guilt. And we waken to the happier dream in which we are no longer identified with shame and guilt, and therefore experience others as our brothers and sisters who share the same interests and walk beside us on the path. The Course says that the last step is taken by God, that when we are ready, and it's only when we are ready, nothing is done beyond our decision. When we are ready, God will take the last step and bring us to Him. But that can only be done if it is what we want. We needn't fear that we will be abruptly hurled into heaven and lose something that is precious to us. As long as that self-identification is what we want, we will have it and it won't be taken away from us. But again, we will lose that identification with shame and guilt. We'll become a happier person, a more peaceful person, a friend to ourselves and to others. But let's get into this essay. The title, Through the Looking Glass, you might know, is from Alice in Wonderland, where she goes through the mirror, the looking glass, and then enters into another world. So let's begin. Through the Looking Glass, Forgiveness, Time and the Event Horizon. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and our dreams are full of them. Metaphors use symbolic imagery to equate one thing with another. Familiar images are used in ways that transcend their usual meaning. For example, to say she was shadowboxing turns the well-known term shadowboxing into a symbol of someone's inner battle projected outwards onto others. The strength of metaphors lies in their ability to hit at the heart of things. Words conveying symbolic imagery strike us in ways that literal, non-symbolic exposition can't. With imagery, we comprehend the total picture before we have a chance to dissect it with our rational mind. As such, metaphors are handy when we want to stress the importance of something. Now we come to a subtitle, Metaphors, Thresholds, and A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles frequently uses metaphors and poetic language for emphasis. particularly in describing times when we're at major crossroads in our learning. Indeed, crossroads is a symbol itself, reflecting a point at which an important decision is to be made regarding our future direction. In The Borderland, the course depicts such a scenario. Quote, "There is a borderland of thought that stands between this world and heaven. It is not a place, and when you reach it, is apart from time. Here, all illusions are laid down beside the truth, where they are judged to be untrue. This borderland is just beyond the gate of heaven. Here is every thought made pure and wholly simple. Here is sin denied, and everything that is received instead." End of quote. Though the borderland isn't a place, we are given the metaphor of a section of land that stands before a gate of heaven. This picture is clear and evocative. We have reached a part along the journey where we are faced with a threshold of change. Will we elect to pass through the gate? The borderland is where we accept the atonement principle, that we haven't offended God, that nothing terrible has happened. We have been at home in God, dreaming of exile. We recognise the illusory nature of the world of separation and separate interests, of shifting alliances and broken selves. Earlier in chapter 22 of the text, the Course talks about another important threshold. Quote, "This is a crucial period in this course, for here the separation of you and the ego must be made complete. Now must you choose between yourself and an illusion of yourself, not both, but one." End of quote. A few paragraphs later, this crucial period is described as a branching of the road. Quote, "When you come to the place where the branch in the road is quite apparent, you cannot go ahead. You must go either one way or the other. For now, if you go straight ahead, the way you went before you reached the branch, you will go nowhere. The whole purpose of coming this far was to decide which branch you will take now. The way you came no longer matters. It can no longer serve." End of quote. At this point in our journey, we've come too far to turn back because we know the futility of where we were headed before, but we're afraid to accept the commitment we've made to follow the Course's message. Better, says the Course, that we acknowledge that we can't turn back, that, quote, "a choice made with the power of heaven to uphold it cannot be undone." End of quote. And in this acknowledgement, we are assured we will receive all that we need to keep on going. We simply need to keep the faith. This essay carries on with the Course's tradition of using metaphors to express the big stuff, those places along our way that present us with the greatest opportunity for growth, along with showing us our greatest resistance. I'd like to put forward a metaphor to help convey the radical implications of our decision to accept the Course's atonement. I will use the event horizon of black holes as a symbol for a branching of the road, or a borderland. But first, a very short introduction to some strange cosmic phenomena. So here we come to another subtitle, How to Make a Black Hole. The more particles you pack into a single container, the more the content density increases. If you pack enough particles of something, anything, into a constant volume of space, you will eventually make a black hole. It's as simple and amazing as that. Gravity is a force that acts on an object, directing energy toward its centre. At the same time, there is outward pressure within the object's mass that matches the force of gravity, up to a point. As the density of an object increases, so too does the gravitational force acting upon it, and at some critical point, the outward pressure can no longer match the gravitational force. The object collapses in on itself and seems to disappear. What remains is a hole that is the blackest of blacks and that has an extremely strong gravitational pull. Black holes occur naturally when the core of a massive star implodes due to extreme gravitational pressure. Anything crossing the edge of the hole is swallowed forever, even light. But it has to get close enough to be pulled right in. The event horizon is the point where the gravitational pull of the black hole gets you, and off you go into the great unknown. It's the horizon at which the event happens. Granted, dropping into a black hole can seem a scary prospect, heading into the unknown, perhaps, as some scientists have claimed, into another universe. Einstein's theory of gravity seems to also predict that time itself comes to an abrupt end at the centre of the hole, which is why a black hole is sometimes described as the reverse of creation. Subtitle: Forgiveness and the End of Time. There are a few things about this cosmic scenario that appeal to me as metaphor for transformative change. Firstly, the change involved in crossing from one side of the event horizon to the other is radical, to put it mildly. With the branching of the road metaphor, we see the emphasis on choosing a different direction, on establishing our goal, planting our flag on either the ego's path or the Holy Spirit's. The borderland at the gate of heaven metaphor depicts the choice to step into peace, recognising that our belief in sin and separation has been misguided. The idea of crossing an event horizon into a different universe, leaving time and the past behind, the reverse of creation, ups the ante on the mystery scale. It is also a useful metaphor for the radical change that emerges when one consistently accepts the miracle. It represents a new life, a rebirth. Quote, "Miracles are both beginnings and endings, and so they alter the temporal order. They are always affirmations of rebirth. They undo the past in the present and thus release the future." End of quote. Miracles put an end to our past grievances affecting our present experience, and so they are beginnings. Discussions of time figure a lot in the course because our linear concept of time roots us in the ego's dream. Sin is the thought of having done something wrong in the past, which is the belief in separating from God, which means our experience in the present is one of guilt, and we will have fear of the future. Lock in one element of this trio and you experience them all. The choice to cross the event horizon and leave the past behind is therefore a choice to be free of guilt. But this also means no longer insisting that our attacks on others are justified. Quote, "Everyone seen without the past thus brings you nearer to the end of time." End of quote. When seeming attacks bring out the fighter in us, or the walking wounded, we can remember that our goal is nothing less than to be reborn. This is reminiscent of the first time idea in Workbook Lesson 7, which is not unlike Buddhism's beginner mind. Without thoughts of the past to project onto the present, our minds are open to the reality of what is before us now. Subtitle: Life in the Fast Lane, Approaching the Event Horizon. Moving on from the past means letting go of our character armour, of the identifications we have clung to for so many years, but that aren't really us at all. And we know they're not us if they place us in opposition to others. Identifications such as black sheep or winner, overlooked or favoured. There is a method in the ego's madness. A sense of irreconcilable differences is what keeps it alive. But although our character armour preserves our identification with the ego, it was once necessary. We adopted it in childhood to feel secure. It was the best we could do, faced with our frightening existence. We'll therefore experience significant inner turmoil along the path to letting it go. And here we stand, at the event horizon. We are near the end zone, and though the particular forgiveness lessons are familiar, we are now dealing with them in a more profound way. Their nature as reflections of the ontological split from God is now more salient. These issues are the ones that have brought us the greatest feelings of anxiety, depression, guilt, anger, and shame. Intense feelings of abandonment and fear of punishment are central to them, along with one special person who has seemed to be the source of it all, the main reason for us adopting our character armour all those years ago. disorientation before reorientation, or in the alchemical process, disintegration before integration. The turbulent process of inner change that comes from engaging in the process of forgiveness, calling us to relinquish our armour, can limit our movements in the outer world. Though this inner process can save 1,000 years in terms of letting go of our ego, to outsiders it can seem like we have come to a standstill. The event horizon provides another wonderful metaphor for this. If we were to observe an object at the edge of the event horizon, it would appear to be frozen in time, absolutely still. This is because, according to Einstein's theory of relativity, time is affected by the speed at which we are travelling. Since the gravitational pull of the black hole increases as an object gets closer to it, the object will speed up as it approaches the event horizon. But to a stationary observer away from the hole, it will appear to be slowing down. So, during a turbulent inner shift, the world might see you as stuck, going nowhere, lost, not getting much done. But internally, you are travelling at a cracking pace. As we deal with the inner confusion, disorientation, and fear associated with particular forgiveness issues, we'll gradually be able to return to the essence of the choice at hand. Do we want to see what we have denied because it is the truth? This is the last unanswered question referred to in the course and follows on from 3 others. Do I desire a world I rule instead of one that rules me? Do I desire a world where I am powerful instead of helpless? Do I desire a world in which I have no enemies and cannot sin? Though we might say yes to the first 3 questions, we still find the last one daunting because the ego has convinced us that truth is our enemy. The last unanswered question again, I'll just read out. Do we want to see what we have denied because it is the truth? Well, the ego has convinced us that the truth is our enemy. We believe we are refugees who have fled an unloving father, a tyrant who lorded it over us. To cross that threshold and return to truth is to be met with the wrath of a punishing father. How dare you run away from home? What will people think? If truth is where retribution lies, we can stay away from it by focusing on our grievances, which keep us nice and safe on this side of heaven's gate. The Course assures us, however, that God's will for us is perfect happiness. And we begin to accept this as we let go of our belief in guilt by practicing forgiveness. We are also assured that the reality of our experience on the other side of our grievances is worth the leap of faith. And here's a quote from the Course. Can you imagine what a state of mind without illusions is? How it would feel? Try to remember when there was a time, perhaps a minute, maybe even less, when nothing came to interrupt your peace, when you were certain you were loved and safe. Then try to picture what it would be like to have that moment be extended to the end of time and to eternity. Then let the sense of quiet that you felt be multiplied 100 times, and then be multiplied another 100 more. And now you have a hint, not more than just the faintest intimation of the state your mind will rest in when the truth has come. End of quote. As children, we are fascinated by the idea of other worlds entered into by mysterious means. A looking glass, a wardrobe, a newly discovered door. As adults, instead of being fearful of what lies ahead if we let go of our past, we can tap into that sense of enchantment and wonder at the prospect of passing beyond the horizon into a different universe, of being reborn. Unlike in our childhood stories, there are no battles on the other side, no riddles to solve or struggles in order to return home. We'll know we are home, that the only problem has been solved, and that we can call everyone friend. Okay, that's the end of the essay, and it comes from my book, Alchemists of Suburbia, A Course in Miracles, Psychology and the Art of Integration. Now, another thing I want to point out about this idea of going to the other side of the ego, as we just read out from the Course, it is a beautiful experience. And it is the experience of being reborn, something that you don't get in psychology, a psychology without any spiritual emphasis, is this idea of transformation. Apart from Carl Jung, there really wasn't a psychologist that was interested or gave any credence to the idea of transformation that usually is the province of religion and spirituality. Generally, religions do hold this idea of transformation, of being reborn. And Carl Jung was really on his own in seeing that kind of rebirth and transformation as being a goal of positive psychological growth as well. But of course, his psychological method and philosophy really did encompass the idea of something beyond the ego, something beyond the egoic self, beyond the body. So this is the promise of the Course, radical transformation. And you can't get more radical than going from an experience of absolute identification with sin, guilt, and fear to one and feeling incomplete, and an identification with scarcity and lack, vulnerability, to feeling whole, to identifying with an innocent spiritual self, and that radical transformation of our relationships as we step into that new experience of who we really are at the soul level or the spirit level. And we needn't be afraid of it, because it will be everything we really want. It will be our heart's desire, and we won't be disintegrated into an oblivion. When we are ready, the real world will be gently transformed into heaven. But it's only when we're ready. And until then, there is a lot of joy to be experienced. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you join me again. Bye.